This video is sponsored by Fist of the North Star. Hello you beautiful people, it is your boy Chuck, and today I will be going over a battle that has been on my mind for quite a while, regarding two of the coolest versions of Godzilla out there. Showa Godzilla, the original atomic beast who started it all, and the Legendary Godzilla, who recently faced off against the crafty King Kong and the hyper-lethal Mechagodzilla. Now that the movie has been out for quite over a month, I assume that a good portion of people have watched it already. So I decided to check out their power, speed, feats, and other attributes to try and determine which of these two fiendish reptiles would come out on top if they were to face off with the Earth as their battleground. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's begin with the big, bad, thick, legendary Godzilla, who weighs over 100,000 tons, is over 120 meters tall, and is an intimidating physical powerhouse. Being over 250 million years old, Monsterverse Godzilla is quite old, has taken part in past Titan Wars, and even prior to acquiring multiple power-ups, he was able to survive being pretty much right next to a mass extinction level meteor, which encompassed what seems to be an entire country. After that, he hibernated for millions of years, feeding on Earth's radiation in the process. Once he awoke, the humans foolishly believed that their nuclear arsenal would be able to erase him from existence, but little did they know that Godzilla is a living nuclear reactor. During his 2014 debut, he was able to slap the male and female Mutos individually, forcing them to gang up on him as he fought them for over an hour. Even while being exhausted and having multiple stab wounds, he was able to slam the male Muto to death with his tail, and was also able to cleanly decapitate the female Muto. Within the movie, he did so with elegant fashion using his deep-powered atomic breath, and within the novel, he did so with a single swipe of his arm, proving that his physical strength is at least comparable to the power of his blue beam. He definitely hits the gym as he was able to overpower the 60,000-ton female Muto, and he even managed to throw King Ghidorah, who weighs between 120 and 140,000 tons. One of his best abilities, which so far he has only showcased in the Godzilla Aftershock comic, is his dorsal atomic pulse, which allowed him to send Muto Prime, the big bad mommy Muto, flying into the air. He was overwhelmed by that gigantic Godzilla-slaying parasite at first, but thanks to the humans, he was able to come out on top in the very end. The better part of Godzilla's power scaling came when he finally settled his millennia-old beef with King Ghidorah, who, like his Showa predecessor, also wanted to strip the Earth of life and create a mass extinction event. Just by existing, the space dragon was able to spawn thousands of natural disasters and created a superstorm so huge that at one point it covered pretty much all of Brazil. Within my Godzilla vs Kong analysis video, I went over this nifty thing called CAPE, which stands for Convective Available Potential Energy, which in short, allows us to calculate how much potential energy in the atmosphere is needed to create a big ass storm and maintain it. Really nasty storms have CAPE values of at least 8,000 joules per kilogram of air mass, but a Ghidorah's CAPE value would likely be far, far higher. I'll post the calculation in the description, but to get to the point, by cancelling units and multiplying the area of Brazil by the altitude of the clouds to get its volume, the density of the moist air at hurricane-compatible temperatures, and the CAPE value in the atmosphere, even as a lowball, Ghidorah's storm required over 225 gigatons of energy to create. Typical hurricanes, which are weak sauce compared to what Ghidorah created, have been recorded to release the energy equivalent of over 10,000 atomic bombs during their lifetime. And this is not including the energy that a Ghidorah would have had to release to move the storm around, nor does it include the additional energy he would have had to release to spawn thousands of thunderstorms and tornadoes around the world. Plus, the King of the Monsters novel does state that he had the bottled up energy of 100 storms when he was ready to kill off the nuclear juice Godzilla. So, let's say that a Ghidorah storm was 200 gigatons. Multiply it by 100 and we get a whopping 20,000 gigatons of energy, or 20 teratons, that he was going to unleash on Big G, which is enough energy to destroy average-sized countries. I know it might seem weird to calculate King Ghidorah's attack potency from his storms, but keep in mind that he was able to create multiple gigaton range natural disasters just by being him, so it is fair to assume that when he's actively fighting and charging up his energy, that his attacks would exert far more power. and by extension this would apply to Godzilla's stats as well, especially since after his burning form expired, he was able to disperse Ghidorah's storms right afterwards. Now onto speed. To be honest, Legendary Godzilla is not the fastest kaiju around, as he was unable to react to Ghidorah's gravity beams pretty much every time, which have been compared to as being lightning multiple times within the novel. The flash that we see in a lightning strike is obviously light speed, but the return stroke that makes contact with the ground travels at a fraction of that speed, which is about 1/3 the speed of light, or 100,000 kilometers per second. The speed of his atomic breath, however, is a different story. Prior to the Godzilla vs Kong film, there wasn't really a sure way to estimate its speed, but given his amazing feat of being able to blast a hole from Hong Kong to the Hollow Earth, we can estimate the speed of his iconic blue flame. Using cinematic timing, the reference images for the Hollow Earth to estimate its distance from the surface of the Earth, and assuming this took between 2 and 3 minutes, his attack speed would easily be between Mach 80 and Mach 120. Placing his atomic breath in the very high hypersonic ranges. But it is likely far higher given that the Earth's crust gave him a lot of resistance. So, now that we have gone over this big bad Godzilla, how will Showa Godzilla fare off against him? Real quick, before we get into the next contender, I would like to give a huge thanks to Fist of the North Star for sponsoring this video. A stellar mobile game from Sega that has sparked a lot of interest recently, as it has accumulated over 2 million downloads with a very positive rating of over 4 stars. In this game, your battle begins in a post-apocalyptic wasteland as you take control of the classic Chad manga character Kenshiro to fight off against evil and cunning opponents. The game closely follows the story entailed within the original manga, complete with a badass soundtrack, amazing graphics, and high-grade cutscenes, all in Japanese, with English subtitles of course. So, whether you're new to the series or have read it before, you're likely gonna have a good time and experience nostalgia along the way. As you progress through the story, you're able to access in-game currency, login bonuses, items to level up your fighters, unlock new skills, and most importantly, you're able to unlock more characters using gems, which can spice up your gameplay dramatically as combos are a very big part of the game's combat system. Right now, there's a dope event as part of a collaboration between Capcom and Fist of the North Star, which will run through the near end of May, in which you'll have a chance to unlock iconic Street Fighter characters such as Sakura, M. Bison, and Thunder Thighs Chun-Li. So be sure to check out the link in the description to download the game, which is available for iOS and Android devices. Now get out there and kick some ass in style. You won't regret it. Now onto the next atomic monster. The OG Showa Godzilla that spawned over a dozen films and kicked a lot of monster ass along the way. What does he have in comparison to its most recent iteration? This Godzilla is estimated to being 200 million years old, weighs 20,000 tons, has a height of 50 meters, and has an atomic breath temperature of over 100,000 degrees Celsius. His body is equipped with a meaty tail, powerful megaton range punches, kicks, and has a very impressive body strength, as he has been able to drag, throw, and push over kaiju who weigh far more than him, like King Ghidorah who weighs 30,000 tons, and Mechagodzilla who weighs over 40,000 tons. If that wasn't impressive enough, he's also been able to toss away kaijus that weigh over 90,000 tons, as depicted in the canon Zone Fighter TV series. By himself, he was able to defeat a hostile Anguirus, a weakened Mothra, beat the hell out of Kong in their first encounter and only got bested once it got a lightning-based amp, tore off Ibira, the lobster kaiju's pincers off, and for the most part has a very positive win-loss record. After having tough fights against King Kong, King Ghidorah, Gigan, and other terrifying monsters, Godzilla became smarter and stronger as he trained between battles. Early on, one of his weaknesses was extremely high levels of voltage which numbered in the tens of millions. However, he eventually was able to absorb electricity to become stronger and turn himself into a magnet, proving that he has a decent level of adaptability. His regeneration and stamina have allowed him to fight for hours even after suffering heavy cuts and bloody wounds to Gigan's edgy appendages and Mechagodzilla's barrage of deadly beams and missiles. And like Son Goku, he is very tenacious and doesn't give up, even when the battle seems lost. One of Showa Godzilla's best attributes is his insane combat speed and reaction times, which at the very least should be within the supersonic to hypersonic ranges, as he has kept up with Mothra, Rodan, Gigan, and other monsters whose typical airborne speeds are Mach 5 levels and higher. But he is clearly capable of faster than light reaction speeds at his best, since he was able to dodge King Ghidorah's gravity beams multiple times point blank, which are stated in the guidebooks to being rays of light. He's also been able to dodge, block, and react to Mechagodzilla's space beams and Ghidorah's crimson rays. And it is worthy to note that the attacks of these monsters have been consistently mentioned in the books to being rays, beams, and lights. An introductory guide to Godzilla also mentions that his atomic breath resembles Cherenkov radiation light, which appears when a charged particle travels through matter faster than light can through water or some other transparent medium. By the way, I will post my sources in the description below if you're interested in checking them out. King Caesar, another protector kaiju who helped Godzilla fight off Mechagodzilla, was able to react to the attacks that Mechagodzilla fired at him and repel them back as prismatic rays, and is even capable of returning the attack by 10 times its potency, which will be very important later on. To further prove that this scaling makes sense, the Space Dragon himself was also able to fight and react to Zone Fighter in space, who was able to travel from Venus to the Earth in about a minute and literally moved out of his eyesight before he even noticed. One of the most important attributes in a versus battle is, of course, attack potency and durability. I can already see that most people think that Showa Godzilla is one of the weakest versions of the whale gorilla, but he's actually far stronger than you might think, and my personal ranking of him has certainly changed as well. For starters, the original Godzilla was already capable of destroying entire city districts with ease, and was able to release so much energy with his atomic breath that it was able to boil over 100 million tons of seawater, which was calculated by Power Crunch as requiring over several megatons of energy. Before we get into the crazy scaling, I would like to mention that there is a sense of inconsistency in the Showa era. For example, with kaijus taking several hours to wipe out a city, which doesn't make sense, and during the Godzilla vs. Ebirah film, the reptile was implied to being able to be fatally injured if not killed by an island-wide explosion. But this can be somewhat explained as the film was originally supposed to have King Kong in it instead of Godzilla, and this would make sense because Kong is a weak. But hey, if you want to downplay using that, go ahead. We can just use the same treatment for Monsterverse Godzilla and Ghidorah, who, logically would be able to release gigatons of energy, if not even higher, but when Godzilla blew up, he didn't even destroy a city, so, just keep it in mind. And if you still really want to downplay, the Godzilla fact sheet at the start of Godzilla vs. Kong literally says, unironically, that his atomic breath output is less than a megaton, so, there's downplay for both sides if you really want to go there. Regardless, there is a decent amount of information and scaling within the guides, the movies, and the Zone Fighter TV series that implies that these kaiju are quite likely country and even continental level threats. To prove this, we just have to take a look into the mass extinction level threat that is King Ghidorah, the space wyvern that was able to turn Venus into an inhospitable, superheated wasteland with little to no water. According to the spirit of a Venusian who survived the dragon's assault, Ghidorah laid waste to the planet very quickly and likely within a day. She then urgently warns the humans that if he was not stopped right away, that the Earth was in danger of sharing the same fate, and this is repeated several times. The Kodansha TV magazine Color Book 9 says that Ghidorah wiped out the Venusian civilization very quickly, and the Godzilla Compendium describes King Ghidorah, the Showa one of course, as being a planet destroyer and has done so several times in the past. During the Zone Fighter TV series, which takes place after Godzilla fights off against Megalon and Gigan, King Ghidorah returns and is seen taking control of a prism that could absorb so much energy from the sun that it actively made it dim in order to take away the power from Zone Fighter and his friends. To prove how significant this is, in just 1 second, the sun releases about 380 septillion joules of energy. That is 10 to the 26th power, by the way, which is more than enough energy to wipe out large countries and even continents. Now, it is never actually stated that Ghidorah absorbed this energy, but when the prism's absorbing gas dissipates, it does go into Ghidorah's direction. Yet, even after Zone Fighter's power was restored, he was still forced to acquire a power-up to help it drive King Ghidorah away from the Earth. But what do you know, once he was stripped of this power-up, Ghidorah was able to overwhelm him and blinded him. The gigantic humanoid eventually did defeat Ghidorah, but what I'm trying to get at here is that even if he didn't absorb the energy, he was still able to take control of something that can. Also, the space dragon literally feeds on cosmic radiation, has an appendage to help it do so, and has used the acquired energy to help it wipe out planets as stated in the guidebooks. So, combine this with several statements saying that the Earth was in immediate danger of sharing the same fate as these other planets, and one can see that narratively speaking, King Ghidorah, and by extension Godzilla, who became more powerful than him until, the future one arrived, would likely be capable of wiping out countries and even continents. Alrighty, so how would these two match up against each other? In terms of size and bulk, Legendary Godzilla has a clear edge in this category, which would make it somewhat challenging for Showa Godzilla to throw hands against. But honestly, despite Showa Godzilla's smaller stature and weight class, it wouldn't really matter since he has been able to tussle with kaiju who weigh several times more than him. Next up, physical combat prowess and lethality. After his battle with Ghidorah and after absorbing Mothra's life force, Godzilla clearly kept at least a portion of the amp that he received, as he was not only more agile, but was also able to charge and fire his atomic breath much faster with a better cooldown. In his clash with Kong, the ape gave him a pretty good challenge overall thanks to his versatility and his nifty axe, but Goji was still too much for him and won over the Earth in the end. Although he did struggle against Mechagodzilla, he was in fact depowered because, he expended a lot of energy fighting Kong, and due to firing a big ass hole through the hollow Earth, which Adam Wingard, the movie's director and the novelization, both mention as well. So, it is likely that he could have beaten Mechagodzilla, or at least put up a much better fight against him if he was at full power. Barring the lightning-firing Ghidorah, Godzilla's superiority and dominance amongst the majority of the kaiju is very apparent, as he basically made all of them submit to him and accept him as their alpha, which is further shown by a compilation at the start of Godzilla vs. Kong. At first, Showa Godzilla was a sloppy fighter and left openings that his opponents could exploit, but as he trained and got more powerful, he minimized these drawbacks. This is showcased pretty well in his battle against Megalon and Gigan, as he managed to block their simultaneous attacks while hitting them in return. He's also been able to bait his opponents into clashing into each other, and like Kong, he's used trees as weapons, proving that he is overall a better fighter. Next up, overall attack potency and durability. I think this one is quite competitive because both of these kaiju have country level scaling if not even higher, as I mentioned by comparing them to their draconian rivals. But I do believe that on average, they should both be able to harm each other, with the biggest difference being the rate at which they can fire their atomic breath. Showa Godzilla has been able to fire his blue beam numerous times in quick succession without charging it, even after being heavily exhausted, implying that his overall energy levels are more stable and that he has a shorter cooldown. Sure, Monsterverse Godzilla's atomic flame looks to be more potent given its larger size and width, but it is not something that he can spam often, so he would have to be more mindful of when to attack in this manner. Remember how I mentioned that King Caesar's Eye was able to absorb and redirect an attack by 10 times its original output? Well, that would help Godzilla a lot in this case, since his physical attacks were able to damage Mechagodzilla's armor and even managed to rip off his head, even though he was able to endure his own amplified energy attack numerous times. And even after Mechagodzilla came back stronger than ever, Godzilla was still able to rip off his head again and literally blew him up. It is also very likely that his physical attacks are more powerful than his atomic breath because he was able to punch through a shield that his atomic breath failed to penetrate. For stamina, I believe that both Godzillas are quite comparable as they have been able to fight for long periods of time, even after suffering a lot of punishment. But overall, I think that Showa Godzilla takes a slight edge because, even after getting spammed by a bombardment of attacks, having his skin and muscles melted away by acid to the bone, being buried alive, and bleeding all over the damn place, his tenacity has allowed him to stand up and fight back even against overwhelming odds. I think that what this battle ultimately comes down to is speed. Sure, Monsterverse Godzilla's attack speed is very fast, but his actual movement and reaction times are very sluggish in comparison to Showa Godzilla, who has been able to dodge and block point-blank attacks in quick succession. In conclusion, I think that Showa Godzilla would be able to win this versus battle with moderate difficulty. Meaning that, it wouldn't be an easy battle, but it also wouldn't be one that he would have to try his absolute hardest, given that Monsterverse Godzilla has very impressive durability and bulk, but due to Showa Goji's greater speed, martial arts experience, and the aforementioned higher end scaling from King Ghidorah's life-wiping potential, he has my vote. Anyways, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my conclusion, or do you think that Monsterverse Godzilla has a better chance than what I depicted here? Please let me know, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good one, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you thotties next time. Peace out.